Welcome to the podcast where we take a deep dive into the stories behind construction business leaders. We will share how they got started, how they found success, and the lessons learned along the way. I'm your host, Eric Fortenberry. Welcome to Builder Stories. Welcome back, everybody. I'm excited. I have Philip Sessions from Refined VA joining me today. Going to take a different spin on things. We've never had someone who works with virtual assistants, and I'm so interested, Philip, to hear how you guys got started, and then what you've seen in the market, working with the different contractors, and how you guys have been able to make a real impact on their business. So really excited to have you. Welcome to Builder Stories.
Hey, thanks for having me, Eric. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, it's my pleasure, man. So why don't you kick us off with a little bit of background, kind of tell us, who you are, how did you get into to the VA world, and what do you guys do?
So a little bit about me. I'm married. I've got two girls that are 4 and 2 years old. So in the thick of it on the family side, started my business Refined VA about 2 years ago. And so been slowly building that up. And we started with virtual assistant placements because about a year before that, I wanted to get better at marketing, and I had my own podcast and everything, and was posting on social media, but everything was just kind of like last minute, throw it on social media. So I wanted to get better. And so I got some help finding my first virtual assistant, and that really saved me a lot of time. Fast forward to when I started the business, I had two friends reach out really asking for help with virtual assistants, and I was just going to help them. I didn't have plans to really start the business around virtual assistant placement, but they really were like, hey, we want to pay you. What does that look like? And they were two completely separate friends, and within 3 weeks, I ended up having a third client because one referred me, and then we had 4 VAs placed. So I was like, all right, I guess I'm starting this whole business thing here. And it's so about 2 years later after that is where I actually had Johnny Buck from Win Rate Consulting. I went to their quarterly event last year, Q2 event, and they suggested about really niching down into the contractor side of things. And I thought about it, but I was a little hesitant, and I just didn't really know how I could provide that value with them besides getting them a virtual assistant. But then finally, Johnny Buck convinced me late last year to jump into JobTread. And when I jumped into JobTread, I saw while there was a benefit to helping with virtual assistants, there was the lack of understanding what JobTread can do, the lack of knowing what a virtual assistant can do. And really, my business was struggling because we'd get people that were excited. They heard that virtual assistants were this great thing, they could help you out and do all this, but then they didn't know how to manage a virtual assistant. They didn't know what to give them or how to delegate tasks to them. So they basically were paying for a virtual assistant to do nothing. And then also seeing JobTread, that people would get JobTread and they're kind of using it, but not using it to the full extent. And they just felt overwhelmed. I realized, you know what? I can fix contractors' problems and my problem at the same time in my business. And we can turn this around. And rather than placing a virtual assistant, we essentially help them on the back end, building out their JobTread and supporting. And so we've made that switch, and it's been pretty good so far. But in a nutshell, that's my story.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love businesses that get built out of a needs basis. Like you see a real opportunity and you focus on solving that. Super awesome. Johnny's great. Win rate. They got a lot of good things going on there. And
Oh yeah.
I'll echo too that, like, I see a lot of opportunity, for businesses to leverage VAs, but they often they don't know where to start. They don't, even how to find someone, is often the kind of the point where they can't even get off the starting block. So,
Yeah.
can you talk a little bit more about, like, how do you help people, find the right VA, and, like, how do they know, like, how do they interview? How do they, like, make sure that's the right person for their business, the things that they can, that they need to help with? I feel like a lot of people often, like you said, don't know what a VA can do. And so, like, it's kind of this, like, challenge of, like, well, I don't really know what I'm looking for. I don't know who would be a good fit. Like, how do you sort of help people with that?
Yeah, so from our perspective, what we do is sit down with a call with them, ask them, what are they doing on a daily basis? What are those things that they hate doing, things that they just miss doing half the time? Like for me, at one point, I was putting my podcast up on the website, and I would forget to do it all the time. So I'm like, okay, that's one thing I miss doing. I want to do it. It wasn't necessarily a moneymaker, but I wanted to do it. And so that was the thing I could delegate to my virtual assistant. But we figure out, what do they not like to do that needs to get done? What things are they missing? And then what other little tasks are just eating up their time so they can, that, and if it's eating up their time, they can't focus on building the business. And so we can take those tasks and figure out, I like to try and lump them into something that makes sense. Like I wouldn't have somebody on sales calls who's also creating social media content, like two completely different things, or somebody that's building out job tread, but then they also have to be the person on camera or something like that. Two completely different roles. So I try and, or we try and make sure that they're segmented into a certain thing of group of tasks, but it's not like you're only a social media manager. And then based on that, we go out and then search for people that have that experience, and we try and match it with that person's industry. And then we have an interview with the clients and then place from there. And we support on the back end after that as well. But that's primarily how we do that. Now, as far as like interviewing, there's different ways about it. If you can do tests, I strongly recommend that. If you're doing social media, like, hey, create me some graphics, create a video. You can ask them to do like even a week's worth of content for you. Maybe it's 7 posts. Create 7 posts for me, like you're going to post about my personal brand or my business brand. So you can really see what they're doing. Because, like anybody, they can lie on a resume, they can sound great in an interview. But when you do that test, you can really see, okay, is this something that's actually going to work out? Do they actually know what they're doing? Or does it sound like Chat GPT? Because we've had that as well, where we've done like a list of interview questions. And I was reading one of them one time. I was like, this sounds a lot like Chat GPT. So I literally put in Chat GPT, hey, I've got this interview. They asked me to answer these questions. Can you help me answer them? And it was almost verbatim. So, yeah, you just have to pick up those tricks along the way. And it really just comes down to reps at the end of the day, figure out who they are. But I always like to try and match personality and their passion, their drive behind them more so than necessarily the skill set, because skills and ability to learn and grow are completely different people.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you really are playing matchmaker here to help
Yeah.
find the right VA. I'll share our experience. Many years ago wanted to find someone to help us, and we did exactly what you said. We created this test, this exercise. So we wanted them to help with kind of data, formatting, updating, things like that, and so we ended up like we took, I think, put like 500 rows of of Excel data, and we kind of went in and sort of messed it all up and had a few traps in there and things, and like we ended up kind of putting out a post, and it was crazy. Like within like an hour or two, we had hundreds of
Yes.
applicants, and it was just so overwhelming that we didn't even know where to begin. But
Mm.
luckily, we had asked them to, to basically take this exercise, which was to take that spreadsheet that we had, created, and we wanted them to go format it. We gave them very clear instructions, and we said, hey, we want you to time yourself and then send back how long it took you. And then we were able to go and kind of review, the accuracy as well as the time, and that sort of helped us narrow down who we wanted to hire. But I think that that is a great process, and I would encourage people, regardless if it's a VA or it's a full-time employee or a carpenter or whatever, like you got to find good creative ways to be able to truly test their skills to make sure that they're saying, what they can actually do is true. Because as you said, like, I mean, anyone can show up and put on a game face and can lie on a resume or in an interview. It's all about being able to figure out how can you test that and confirm that and make sure they're going to be a good culture fit. Because I do think, I mean, these people, it's going to be important that like you can really devote the time to meeting with them, to giving them feedback, to making sure they have clear instructions. And if this isn't somebody you want to work with, then it probably isn't a good fit, right?
Yeah. Yeah, oh, you're exactly right. I mean, and we've gotten it wrong too. Like we've had people, we've done the test, we went in the interview, they did great, and then we get in, and we actually tried to hire an email marketer one time, and it was so funny after the fact, not during the time, but we did the interview. We thought the emails were like, they were pretty good. Obviously, she didn't know our business, but we thought they were pretty good. And then we get in, and we're like, all right, cool. Well, let's create a lead magnet, landing page, all that good stuff, and create the emails for it. Like, let's do maybe like 5-step process. And then, it's taking her forever. And we're like, what's going on? She's like, well, I'm confused. Like, why are you having me do the emails? Like, I'm like, she's like, I've never done email marketing before. I'm like, wait, that's what you interviewed for. And like, we thought we did a good job. So we still make mistakes all the time, but it's going to happen. But the biggest thing that I see most people, they think, and I think it's just portrayed that virtual assistants are just the band aid. They're going to fix it all. While no virtual assistant, I mean, you can't even get somebody in the States to, if it's most virtual assistants, we think like the Philippines or Latin America, stuff like that. But even in the States, you're not going to get somebody that day one, they can hit the ground running. They can do work for you. You have to train them up. And yeah, having that clear communication, like you said, clear, this is your instructions, this is what done means, this is my expectations. Those are the things that have to happen with that remote worker, especially. And I'm guessing you probably had both, haven't you? Like in person, obviously you got most of your team there, I'm guessing, but I mean, you probably had remote workers too, right? What's the difference that you see between like a remote worker and somebody there on staff in the building with you?
Yeah, well, believe it or not, our entire company is in office.
Okay, well,
We are all together. We do have our one VA though. I mean, he's overseas, and I mean he's incredible. We say he's like our most productive employee. We don't actually understand how he does everything that he does, but when you find a good one, boy, you got to keep him and
yeah.
make sure he's happy. But I think it's you're spot on though, right? Like it's about finding the right people who do fit within the culture and they have the skill set. Because again, like if you just put out some generic, I'm looking for a VA, like I mean again, like who knows what that is going to result. But like it sounds like you really help kind of narrow the focus to find the people who have the expertise for the specific role that you're looking to fill. Do you also like how important do you think it is that they understand the industry, they understand construction and the type of work, that you're doing? Are you able to sort of also narrow in on kind of that level of, experience?
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's more important. We actually have somebody we're working with right now to try and get them a remote estimator. And of course, the best thing would be they have construction experience, they have estimating experience, and they have job tread experience. But believe it or not, job tread's not super popular in the Philippines yet. So it is a struggle. We do find some, and we found some for ourselves. But I give that upfront expectation that, hey, while we're going to try and meet all three of those things, job tread's going to be the least important of those, even though a client might think that. Because at the end of the day, while job tread software is awesome, it's just software. And so you can pick up and figure out how software works. Of course, there's nuances to it all, but if you don't know the industry and you don't know the actual work you're doing, it's a lot harder to bring in a virtual assistant off the street, even though they may know the software. It's like trying to take an accountant and then tell them go and do a remodel. Like,
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah.
they might be able to figure out how to swing the hammer and stuff like that, but you might want them only on the demo crew, not the actual install crew.
Yeah, no, you're so true though, and again, like we have seen where VAs they will literally come in and they will go through the entire help desk, watch every
Mhm.
video, get every certification. Like they will invest the time that they need to learn the specific software, and if they understand the industry, I mean that is the number one determinant on how quickly and how much like they will just like innately understand without having to kind of also learn multiple facets, multiple things at once. Like I think you're spot on. It's you got to have the right experience. You got to understand sort of the context and the industry as a whole to be able to then drill into to get to those detailed tasks that you need.
Yeah, exactly. And so make sure when you're in those interviews, asking those questions about the industry, getting their background experience, but then you also need to ask about their personal side. And one thing to know about the Filipino virtual assistants, their culture, they respect authority a lot more than in the States. Like in the States, you can talk to the CEO and it's just like your buddies, like you're just going to talk to them. But over there, you don't say things back. When the CEO or even your manager, somebody one rung above you says something, you don't say, well, hey, I think this other way's better. So you really have to train them up and you have to really ask those questions. Hey, are you proactive or are you just a task taker? Like, talk to me about your experience working with somebody when maybe they asked you to do something and you didn't have a clear understanding of what it is that they wanted you to do. And these situational questions are going to be very important for you to ask on those interviews as well. That's going to tell you more about them than necessarily the skill set that they have to actually do the job.
Sure. So how what so let's say you help you help one of our clients find a VA. What's your ongoing role at Refined VA? Like how do you continue to interface and work? Are you still serving as kind of like this bridge between the contractor and the VA? Like are you guys helping get them trained or monitoring the quality of the work or dealing with performance issues? Like kind of what's you guys ongoing role?
Yeah, so the placement side, the day to day is really on the contractor themselves, but we're there on the back end to be able to handle the payroll. We handle HR topics, so if you're having issues with them, maybe they're not showing up or you're just not sure the cultural fit there, we're constantly touching base with those virtual assistants to make sure we're drawing out any issues because we've seen that a lot of times, like I just mentioned, with the fact that they don't want to say anything to authority. They'll talk to us because we're at the same level, and so they're willing to talk to us about any issues, maybe communication that they're not getting from their boss or our client, and I guess technically their client as well. But they'll tell us, and we can relay that information back. So we support there, and then we also help with ongoing training. So a lot of times, if they're in there estimating a job trade, or maybe they're helping support your job trade, keeping it clean, keeping cost catalogs up to date, things like that. We also support them and they can come to us for questions. They should also have access to the Job Trade Pros group, but they can come to us as well. And so that's how we really support. We're just kind of more of in the background supporting, making sure things run smoothly.
Yeah, that's great because again, yeah, like with anyone, sometimes you get somebody in there and it's not a great fit. Like sometimes it can help to have somebody else who's a little bit more well versed in giving that very specific feedback. Again, just having you guys sort of manage from that HR perspective. And look, at the end of the day, like I feel like some people might get just a bad fit, and then they feel like, oh, this isn't for me, and it's like, no, maybe that just wasn't a good fit. Like I think being able to have you guys there to sort of hear that feedback and then go and maybe find somebody else. Cause I've heard people have to go through a couple, two, three, four to find that right fit. But
Yeah.
man, like once you find that right person, I'm telling you, they're like a godsend for you. But it does take, some time. And again, you got to sort of build that relationship to understand how each other work. And, I gotta say too, like, I mean, I didn't know how the time zone thing would work, but like we have a Slack channel with this guy, and like somehow he just seems to be working at the same times we're working, and just projects get done overnight. We show back in, and it's show up the next day, and it's just done. So like it wasn't that barrier that I thought it was going to be, or that kind of like that burden of having to sort of do the off hour type thing. I mean, they just make it work.
Yeah, and actually their culture is set up that way. Like you can go get your dry cleaning done at 2 in the morning over there because that's how their culture is set up because most of the culture actually is remote workforce working for other countries.
Yeah,
So, yeah, usually the time zone thing isn't an issue. I'd say if you're over on the West Coast, it starts to become a little bit of an issue because from the East Coast, I think right now, until we go to daylight savings times, they're 13 hours ahead. And then once we roll back, or yeah, so I guess maybe we're 12, I forget. But it's like 12 or 13 hours from the East Coast to them. But once you start getting to the West Coast, it does become a bit difficult. But yeah, we see VAs all the time that have worked with people from the West Coast.
sure. And how do you sort of think about like are they being paid hourly? Are they being paid like but are they full salaried? Are they dedicated to your company? Like, how do you sort of think about managing that? Like, is this person going to work with a bunch of people all at the same time? Like, and how do I know they're not like also working for my competitor at the same time? Like, how do you sort of manage all of that?
Yeah, so that's one thing I didn't mention. We do time tracking. So we do time and task tracking. So we tell them as they're switching between tasks that they need to say what that task is so we can monitor that and send that report out. So if you see that, oh, we did, you know, 30 hours of estimating last week and you're like, they had one estimate. There's no way they spent 30 hours. You're going to be able to see that. Of course, we can't because we're not doing that day to day, but we're giving you that report and doing those check-ins. But yeah, like any employee, they could be wasting time. Typically, they do take a little bit longer than you did, especially at the beginning, but they do get better over time. I'm blanking on the rest of the question that you asked me.
So like I mean, yeah, and I totally 100% agree. Like this guy, that we work with is faster than all of us at doing this stuff. Like again, I don't understand how he's so fast, and he tells us it's just him. I'm like, dude, you must have an army of people working for you. But
Mm,
they very much are able to get very very proficient.
yeah.
Super impressive. I would love to see how all their shortcuts and hotkeys, like they must have macros and tools that they use to do just extremely efficient work.
Yeah, and now I remember your question, but yeah, some of them I think they do have people that work for them. We were actually interviewing one person, and she said she's got somebody that works with her helping out with social media, but we wouldn't have to pay for like her and her assistant or whatever. But so some of them do that, and then we have seen that some people, while you try and hire them full time, they end up having other clients, and usually you'll see that in their work. Their work tends to get worse, and ironically, we had one person that we found out we ended up getting rid of her. She had 4 other clients besides us, and she was utilizing one of our other VAs to do her work that she was doing for us.
Oh wow.
So it took a bit of time, but that goes back to that VA didn't feel comfortable necessarily speaking to me directly until I started asking questions directly, and then he was willing to answer. But it was probably a couple weeks where he was actually picking up her work. And then when I finally asked him, "Hey, what's going on? I feel like her work's not getting as good. She's not responsive. What's your feedback since you've been working more directly with her than I have?" And they told me, "Well, actually, she's been getting me to do her work." And so, yeah, it happens. You're gonna see VAs be like that, but there's more VAs that I find that are loyal. And actually, we just hired one that was inside Job Tread's group that said they were a contractor and they wanted something full time. So there's a lot of them that they go from having multiple clients to just wanting to work directly with one person. So it just takes time. You're going to have to work through it and find it.
Yeah.
But just keep monitoring the work that they're doing. You can't just say, okay, cool, go do this thing and we'll keep paying you. And then as far as hourly versus the monthly amount, I've noticed in Latin America, they tend to do more of the monthly, like salary sum that they want. But in the Philippines, they're willing to work more on an hourly basis. And another recommendation I give is really try and shoot for 20 hours a week. I've noticed as well, if you go below 20 hours, like trying to only do 5 or 10, then they're going out and getting 5, 6, 7 different clients. And now your work isn't as good that they're doing for you. But if you're at 20 plus hours a week, they're more loyal to you and their work tends to be a lot better. So you
Yeah.
can't do a lot less hours, but I find that the work ends up being a lot better that they do when you're giving them more hours.
Yeah. Well, and again, I think just like what you said, like you all have the experience managing them and sort of know some of these, these potential kind of loopholes or gotchas or things where they may be, trying to kind of not be dedicated and doing the work that they're agreeing to. And so, I think that's where you guys are adding a lot of value by sort of helping to source them, vet them, monitor, manage all the, kind of the time tracking, the HR related stuff. I mean, that is very, very valuable. How do you go about like, again, I know sometimes there's a concern about, well, like, can I trust this person? Like, if I'm letting them into my job tread and I'm letting them go do estimating for us, like, how do I know that they're not turning around to, our competitor and, working for them and sharing the data? Like, kind of, how do you sort of, put people at ease around sort of that the privacy and all the data sharing?
A lot of it's just like making sure that like, hey, we're there to support, we're there to ask questions, and answer those questions for our clients. Unfortunately, it becomes just a trust factor. But you can put software on their computers and require them to like, hey, I want a screen share of your, where I can remote in at any time and see what is on your screen and everything like that. So far, we haven't really seen anybody necessarily like trying to share that, but we've talked with some clients that have had those issues where they give that estimate out and then somebody turns around and just goes to the uh, next vendor and says, "Hey, I got this quote from this remodeling company, can you do better than that?" And so it's just one of those things. Unfortunately, some people are just human
Yeah,
and I'll call them trash, and you just got to deal with that. But that's where we go back and give that guarantee that we'll get you somebody that's gonna fit, no matter if it's 1 day, 6 months, 6 years down the road. If an issue happens, we're there to help support to replace them. But
yeah,
then if you feel like they're taking too long, we can help do an audit, and based on our team, the things that they're already doing, we can tell you, hey, like, yeah, doing an estimate typically, let's just call it 3 to 6 hours. It doesn't take 3 weeks to get that done or anything like that. And we can go through and say what we think that time would take on those different type of activities.
yeah. And again, I think that's where there's a lot of value with, you all sort of helping to manage this. Like, you can make sure that, if you got two people in the same city, you're not having the same VA working for those, two businesses that are very similar, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, when you think about like, again, like the quality of their work, how does, how, how do you kind of evaluate like a VA versus when to use like an AI or a chat GBT or a Claude or something like that? Because like, I do think a lot of people seem to think that, AI is the end all be all answer and we're going to automate ourselves and everything we're doing. And, like how would you describe kind of the quality of a VA's, estimate versus throwing something into chat GBT?
I Really, it comes down to the nuance of that. So if you're like very much just like a cookie cutter home builder or something, you probably could use AI because everything's basically going to be about the same. But if you're a custom remodeler or a custom home builder, you've got a lot of customization in there. And so you need that human touch. You can still leverage AI. I mean, all VAs are using AI, everybody's using AI, but you can't rely on that. The big distinction I would say is if it's a very easily explained, or you can put in a certain amount of prompts and get an answer, or you're just looking for an idea, but not a fully baked solution, that's where AI really comes in and helps out. A VA can kind of take that next step for you, and it depends on the VA. Some are very task oriented. I'd say kind of like AI, it's very much input in, input out. But you have other VAs that can really think for themselves and they can really think through that process and think a lot bigger. But if you're really looking for somebody that's going to be that right hand person, I would almost suggest somebody that's actually in house. So really going against that VA model. I know it's a little bit beyond the question that you asked, but the VAs a lot of times, while they can be great, and we've got several on our teams that I've been able to build up and coach up to be where like, hey, I need this done, and they can figure it out, and they might ask a question or two to get the clarity because I didn't quite give them everything that they needed, but they're able to go ask those questions. But a lot of times, especially as you're new into leadership, a virtual assistant might not actually be a good fit because of the fact you need to learn how to communicate better. You need to learn how to be very clear on your instructions. But the difference between AI and a virtual assistant is you have that human touch that can think about that little nuance that AI typically can't think about.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So when you look across, again, all these construction companies that you're helping out, like what do you think the best, use cases of a VA are? Like where are you seeing the most success in helping these construction companies with, with virtual assistants?
I would say in the estimation process, really pulling all that information together and really helping get at least 80 to 90% done on that estimate and then sending it over to the business owner or whoever is the lead estimator is the best use case we've really seen. That always seems to be the bottleneck, the thing that takes the most time. And we know that's what ends up generating the revenue because you get the client in, but then you take 2 weeks to get it back. Well, they've already talked to probably 3, 4, 5 other contractors who hopefully got something in sooner. We also know a lot of contractors are notorious for not answering the phone or calling back, but they might have gotten that quote in. So if you can get a VA to really gather all that information from that initial sales call or that initial consultation, put it together, whether they're helping with use of AI and stuff like that, that's what we find to be really the best spot. Second best is really just
Well,
kind of that back office, really kind of
before hold
keeping.
on, but before we go on to the
Yeah.
others, like, how do you like, what is the information handoff? So if I'm wanting to get help with estimating, am I did I have like did I record that phone call and I'm giving them the recording, or if I went out on site, like am I kind of typing up some notes and a summary? Like like am I giving them plans or designs? Like how much information do I need to give, and how do I format that for somebody to be able to go and run with it?
Yeah, a summary of what's going on, like your typical measurements that you're gonna need in order to do that estimate on your own. You have to pass that information along, and that's where you want to look it over for sure, especially at the beginning, because there's things that intuitively because you've been doing that as the business owner or as the estimator. But the things that you're going to need, the measurements, what kind of material is going to be used, how big is the house, those things you have to summarize somehow. So yeah, you can do a recording of that and send it over. I actually just got applaud AI for myself for my sales calls, so I can send that over to my team instead of trying to remember the notes later and type them out. You can also actually just have the VA on the call with you as you're going out there. Like just have your shirt pocket or whatever, and just have them there, being able to listen in on the conversation, and they can take notes. If you really are like that terrible at taking notes, you could do that as well. Taking pictures, things like that, so they can have that information. And whether you put that through JobTread or you decide to stay with Google Suite and just upload everything there. However, you track those notes is really what they need to be able to do that. So anything that you're going to need, they're going to need that so they can start making that estimate. And then you can even get them to build out a template. I mean, the first couple times, you're not going to be good at it. You're going to forget all those things, but tell them, hey, as we're going through this, make sure to document the questions or things that I missed on this so we can go back and address those things later. And this actually happened for me. I was on a call trying to talk about a build out with a client, and I had gotten a lot of the information, and I passed it off to my VAs to help with getting that all together. And they're like, well, hey, what about this, this, this? And I'm like, oh. And then they were like, well, let's create a form so after you have the call, they can fill out this form. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that. I'm just gonna be better about making sure I ask and document the right questions, so that way it's easier on you in the
Yeah.
end. So the VA can then help create that SOP for you, so you make sure you ask those right questions in that estimate so they can take over.
Yeah, that's great. And it seems like as you go through this more, you'll realize, like, because as long as they, like, will say, hey, I need this information. I think, again, the AI is notorious for just like making assumptions and and
Yeah,
and telling you confidently that it is 100% correct, and
yeah.
it's not. Again, I think that's where that human interaction can say, hey, you didn't give me, the details or the measurements or the material, or whatnot.
Exactly,
Do w
exactly.
Now let's say though that, again, it's a very vague opportunity, right? Like you know that you're gonna, redo the floors and you need to get some backsplash and different tile options. Like, are they able to go and like actually source like, hey, I think, these might be some good selections or some good options that you ought to present?
Yeah, I would say make sure that like you have some kind of cost catalog together or typical places that you go and source this type of material, and
Okay,
then they can do that. That's actually something that we talk about all the time, that like yeah, the VA can actually make calls to your vendors on your behalf to get cost updates, to ask about material, what's in stock, how long is that lead time. Those are things that they can do, and over time, as you train them up, they'll be able to see that. But again, that's those things they've got to be trained up to know to do that. But if they've been in the industry, it helps out a lot because they can ask those questions. They know how to source it once you tell them where to go source it at, who are the
sure.
vendors you prefer to use, and everything like that. But yeah, they can definitely do that.
Now, what about, before we move on from estimating, I mean, another component, we have a lot of, design builders, right? And like the design, and renderings are very important. Like, I assume that's probably maybe a different skill set, but like, are VAs able to help with, generating, designs and renders and kind of giving those visual aspects to help you sell?
They can. So at the end of the day, like a virtual assistant is like anybody here in the States. They have that skill set, but you just have to find them. We
Mm,
personally don't place those because we can't support it as well. So then basically you're paying us just to do payroll and maybe a little bit of HR, but we can't support you on any of that technical side. But you can. And I've seen other agencies that have actually placed drafters for companies and everything like that. So
gotcha.
you can get really whatever you want, but you need to be able to know how to do that skill. And a lot of times I see a lot of people, they'll hire a VA because they lack that skill. And there is a certain point where you have to just hire somebody that has the skill set that you don't have.
Sure.
But when you're first starting out with just getting a VA or just getting anybody on your team, you gotta hire people to take away things that you're currently doing because you can monitor that a lot better. But as you go, you can start actually hiring people and you'll be able to see, are they actually doing work? Are they not? Are they taking more time than it really should take? But you have to build up your leadership skill to get
Sure.
those kind of skills outside of the norm.
So if there are, let's say, set of plans, architectural drawings, things like that, like, I mean, they would they be able to upload it to your job tread, to your plans, do the takeoff, kind of, I mean, is that commonly within their wheelhouse?
Yeah, yeah. It usually, yeah, all the takeoffs, anything like data entry, very easy stuff, very task oriented. That's
Yep.
something that a VA could really take on. Yeah, the
Awesome.
more task oriented it is, typically the better. You can teach them the process or walk through the process with them. They can create an SOP, standard operating procedure, and then they can start doing that task on your behalf. But yeah, as you're making them have I'll say think more and do things that aren't necessarily documented and task oriented, that's where a lot more training is going to have to come in, and you have to give them time to really learn that up, and then you hand that off to them.
Sure. All right. So moving on, on from some estimating's number one. What was your next one?
Yeah, like the data entry, really just a back office support, kind of a mix between an admin and a right hand person to your project manager. I would say would be the next thing. Really keeping job tread clean, your workflows, making sure they're good or tweaking them as needed, doing we like to advise like a quarterly cost catalog update. So calling on vendors to check on pricing and things of that nature, but then also communicating with vendors, with subs, with clients to give updates as needed as well, just to make sure that things are on track. And so that's really that next role that we see a lot of times going into job tread, just really kind of supporting the whole back end process. So the people out in the field, they're not stuck having to come back in after and really enter that information. You might hop on a call real quick, or hey, can you call so and so, one of our clients, let them know we're on our way, and then they can call real quick, and then your guy can go on and do something else in the meantime.
Nice. You said a couple things I want to drill into. I mean, one, the quarterly cost catalog update. I mean, like, that's huge, right? Like, everyone's
Yeah.
like, man, how do we update it? And I mean, again, it's like, well, if you go to your supplier and you get ask them for, here's everything I bought and here's the current pricing. You can export, from job tread and update it, but a lot of times that's kind of, over people's heads. So, the fact that, again, like, you could have your VA go do that on a regular basis, and again, if you tell them, hey, here's all of our suppliers, here's where we're buying these materials, like, keep this up to date. I mean, that is a great manual task that you can just offload, and so for a fraction of of
Yeah.
of, of the cost and the time, you're able to keep that up to date. I mean, that seems like a great use case.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen that? I mean, COVID was obviously an extreme example, but the prices skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And of course, you already had projects locked in, but any new projects that you did, if you literally just went off of your data in JobTread, you were losing money hand
Yeah.
over fist. And so, same thing on a quarterly basis. You never know when it's going to go up. Maybe it doesn't. Awesome, but we know everything always increases. So why are you not checking on that? And of course,
Yeah.
then that's the mapping back and forth between QuickBooks Online that then needs to happen too, if you're adding in new things. But you can also with that see what kind of materials are being used the most. You might need to have an inventory on stock, or you might need to add something because it wasn't actually in that cost catalog. Those are things that your virtual assistant can really help out with too.
Yeah, so we're rolling out a lot more integrations with these national distributors, Home Depot,
Mhm.
QXO, SRS, Pool Corp, Heritage, things like that. Like, you know, the challenge is that if people already have these templates built out in these cost catalogs, like they're gonna need to go and sort of merge the new item. If you want to be able to buy from Home Depot, like you need to get that Home Depot item in there and replace it with what you've got. And so this could be a great task for a VA to really help you get set up to be able to do the online ordering. But it does take some effort to kind of get all the right pieces in place. And so, like, again, I think that's a manual exercise that you can completely offload to a VA, and a couple days later you're done. I mean, it's just huge opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing more specific to like the home remodelers I've seen as well is like creating templates for things for your different projects. And I think Marcus Sheridan talked about this. Oh, but you're different, you're special, right? And that's what every custom home builder, custom home remodeler says. But there's some way that you can use that template. Maybe it's just to create line items for all the things that's going to be in a bathroom, that's going to be in a shower, that's going to be in a kitchen, these different areas of the house, and then you plug in those unique items from there. But you already have that template, so again a VA can come in and once they know the specs, what kind of items are going to be in there, they can go plug those numbers in, and now you've got an estimate, but it's already started, rather than hopefully you remember to put everything in if you're going line item by line
Yeah.
item by line item on those projects.
So you also mentioned helping with workflows. I think that is again, it's oftentimes people know that they want to set up the workflows and automations and things, but like a lot of times they either don't feel like they can figure it out, or they don't have the time to figure it out. So that could be, it sounds like, is another great opportunity where a VA could come and you just kind of describe like, hey, I'm doing this over here and I want it to happen over here, like giving them the ability to know what you want automated, and then either using the job tread workflows, or I assume they also probably well versed on Zapier, they can go and essentially create those automations for you that, again, it's not just a one-time thing. Like, they can literally help automate your business to just make you just like exponentially more efficient. And, again, like when they have the expertise and the ability to go learn and figure out, these different tools and, the things that you want to bring together, I mean, like, that can be huge.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, going back to my example about how the VA, when I was missing handing over certain information, they wanted to create a form. That's the same exact thing. You can tell them, hey, look for efficiencies as we're going along. Maybe there's things I'm missing, or maybe you're constantly doing the same thing. Let's see how we can put that in a workflow, and they can go figure that out. They're a fraction of the cost, so
Yeah.
why not let them burn some hours trying to figure it out rather than you trying to figure it out, and
Yeah.
go through that process. And this is kind of taking a bigger step back. I see with a lot of users in JobTread is that they go into it and they're like, there's so much that can be done, but I don't know what I don't know. And that's where a VA can come in as well. Again, they're not like, gonna fix everything, but you can get an implementer to come in and really help you out as well, and just talk with you, have a consultation about, what is your process? What does that look like? Where are your bottlenecks? Where do you hang up? What are the common things that you do? And then based on that feedback that you give them, because they have that expertise in creating workflows and automations, they can help map something out for you, so you
Yeah.
don't have to know exactly, okay, from A to Z, this is exactly what we do. But if you can just talk through that, somebody that is an implementer or a virtual assistant that knows JobTread can help you build that out. And
Yeah.
so it's not about you knowing what all JobTread can do. It's about knowing your business and then having a partner come in and help you implement that into your business and into JobTread.
Yeah. You also mentioned, QBO QuickBooks. So, I gotta assume that's probably a specialty, skill that you would find. But like, they're able to help set up JobTread with the QuickBooks, and then even if you needed stuff not even related to JobTread but QuickBooks related, I mean, there are VAs out there that can help with that as well.
Yeah, there are, and a lot of times when we are on sales calls with prospects and everything, when they talk about that, I always say we can do the mapping between JobTread and QuickBooks. But if you want anything done inside of QuickBooks, we've got some partners, and they're in the JobTread marketplace that you can talk to, and we'll refer them over. But yeah, you
Gotcha.
can get a virtual assistant that can do those things as well. I mean, again, virtual assistants can do anything that you want them to do, but if you're just getting started with one, I highly recommend that you focus in on taking things off your plate that you're doing that will enable you to do other things that make more money for you versus, let's say, hiring a bookkeeper VA. They're
Yeah.
out there, they can be amazing, but if you don't know how to do bookkeeping, it's not going to benefit you because you're
Yeah.
going to have to be checking on things. And for all the bookkeepers listening right now, probably screaming at me, they will mess up the books most likely.
I,
So, then
I
you have to
also
hire a bookkeeper and spend twice as much to get it all cleaned up.
I also would highly recommend a qualified,
Yeah.
bookkeeper, accountant, CPA. Like, you definitely need to make sure you've got the right strategy in place.
Insert more legal jargon.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Uh, but yeah, I mean, so what else? So we've got again estimating. We've got kind of some of that back office, back end job tread setup. I mean, another big area I've seen is with like marketing, social media. A lot of
Mhm.
times, contractors don't have a good social presence. Having somebody, do you find that they're able to do a good job, kind of getting a good rhythm, getting a bunch of content constantly posted? Like, is that a good area?
Yeah, what I found, our biggest struggle really has been on the personal brand of social media. So I have a social media manager that runs both our business and my personal brands and posts basically everything. But especially the personal brand, I'm still in there really approving all that content. Obviously, I'm the one recording videos of me, stuff like that, uploading those. But then from there, they can do the video editing, they can create the captions, and even though I'm going in and approving the stuff, it's such a mental break because I don't have to think, okay, what am I going to shoot today? And then, okay, what am I going to actually post on my social media? Oh, what caption should I create? Oh, let me go throw it in Chat GPT real quick. And then everybody sees all the question mark in the middle of a sentence. They see the M dash, all that stuff that says you use Chat GPT. But yeah, so they can do all that for you as well. And we've definitely placed several video editors and we've placed social media managers, but like I said, on that personal brand side, that's a hard thing. Not even our spouses know each other that well to be able to post as if
Yeah.
they're us, let alone a virtual assistant that's in a totally different country and a totally different culture. But they can do that, especially for your business brand, to really just start getting you out there and getting that recognition because, as everybody knows, it's 2026. Everybody needs to be on social media. Every business needs to be out there showcasing what they do, how they can help their clients, because that's where clients are going now. They're not just going and going to Google. We saw it from Marcus Sheridan, right? They're going to Chat GPT now, all these AI softwares, but they're also going to social media to see what is your work like. They want to see visually what you do, what kind of quality work there that you do, and then they will finally reach out to you. So you have to have social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So any other key areas you think that they could be really beneficial?
Key areas, the other one that we I think's talked about a lot, we didn't really talk about here is an executive assistant. So helping out with managing your calendar, managing your email, managing all those notifications that we get in JobTread, really keeping you on track and on task and not buried down in all those little menial things that really are beneath you, if you will, as a business owner. Like you should be focused on the vision of the company, or if you're still swinging the hammer, swinging that hammer, you don't need to be inside your inbox or trying to set up calendars and all of that stuff. That executive assistant could do that for you.
Awesome. Yeah, that sounds great. So, again, we've talked about a lot of things that could really help people out. How should people think about, like, what is this going to cost me? Like, what does it cost, to hire you to go find, VAs? Like, just can you share any information about that?
Yeah, we're between $1,200 to $2,200 a month, depending on the VA, depending on the amount of hours that you want and everything. You can go get your own VA for 3, $4 an hour, but they're going to know absolutely nothing. You're going to struggle to get them. You're going to get hundreds of inquiries on your job post as well. So we handle all that recruiting for you. But I would say if you're going to go out on your own, first of all, don't go with whatever the first price is that they say, especially in the Philippines. They're getting very Americanized and realize that they can charge more. And a lot of Americans will be like, oh my gosh, $10 an hour is really cheap. And then turns out we've seen that where we've had people who are like, hey, what's your expected hourly rate? And they'll be like $10 or $12. We're like, all right, well, how about like 6 or 8? And they'll, okay, yeah, I can do that. Like they just immediately drop the price. So don't be afraid to haggle with them. Go for somebody. I would say at least that's like $5 or $6 an hour. If you're going to do that, make sure they have a couple years experience, because otherwise, if you're just going for cheap, you're going to spend way more time dealing with them, and they're not going to know anything because they're most likely brand new in the industry and to being a virtual assistant.
So so you're saying for, call it 14, 15,000 to, 25, 26,000 a year, you can bring on somebody to help take all of these tasks off of your plate and be able to get it done so much more efficiently, get it done. I mean, that just seems like a steal, right? Like, I mean, what an
Yeah.
opportunity without having to bring in a full-time person who's going to cost you a whole lot more, at a fraction of a cost. You can get a VA to do the work for you.
Yep.
Again, it sounds like a no-brainer, right? Like, yeah,
Oh
I
yeah.
think like you said though, it's about finding the right people, and that's why, having somebody like you who is very well versed in this, understands the need, understands the client, and can go find the right fit. I mean, that is well worth it, in my opinion. So, I think it's awesome, man. I appreciate you helping out all of the job trade community and the job trade contractors to find these resources, because it again, it's not often easy, and even figuring out how to pay them, you take care of all that. Like, just like being able to, again, like bring in this resource who can complement, your skills, and supplement the things that you don't want to do. They can come and make sure that you're not dropping balls. I mean, that is huge value add that I think more people need to leverage, and, need to tap into this, but they just don't know where to start. So I'm excited to have you part of our community. Really, really appreciate you coming on and sharing this information, Philip. How should people reach out to you? I know you're in the job trade marketplace. Like, where can, if they want to learn more about you, want to get in touch, is that the best place, or what do you recommend?
You go there. I'm on all social media platforms. Facebook's my favorite. You'll probably see me in the Job Trade Pros community, but yeah, reach out either on Marketplace, on Facebook Messenger. My handle is the real Philip Sessions, Philip with 1 L, or you can look us up on refinedva.com.
Awesome, Philip. Well, look, I really appreciate you coming on, really, kind of pulling back the veil here so that people can see that, like, this is very, very doable. The benefits are there. The cost, is fairly nominal. So excited to, see you keep helping all these job trade contractors, because in order for them to grow and scale, they got to build the right team. And I think VAs are a very important mix to add in there. So thank you. Thank you for coming on. Really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing all the success you can bring our job trade contractors.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. Have a good one. Thanks for joining us for this episode of Builder Stories. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and gained valuable insights that can help you in your journey along the way. Don't forget to subscribe to the show and leave us a review. And as always, if you or someone you know has a story to share, please contact us at builderstories.com. We'd love to hear from you. I'm Eric Fortenberry, and remember, every builder has a unique story. Keep building yours.